Hey guys, it's Dr. Phil. Welcome to Fill in the Blanks again. Glad to be talking to you. I'm actually going to be talking to you today because I'm going to be answering your questions today. On our last episode, I gave you a lot of information about the new network, Merritt Street Media, and got a lot of feedback from you about that. A lot of folks didn't know about Merritt Street Media and didn't know the details about it. So I'm actually glad that I did that. Proud to tell you about all the people that are involved in the network: Steve Harvey, Nancy Grace, Chris Harrison, Mike Rowe, all of those folks. So I was glad to share that information with you and let you know about Dr. Phil Primetime. We're really up and rolling at this point. The first show we started with on Tuesday the 2nd was Indoctrinated to Hate, where we took a look at the Israeli-Hamas conflict that's going on. A lot of you had an awful lot to say about that. I've put up videos about that have gotten millions and millions of views and thousands and thousands and thousands of comments. Some of you on one side, some of you on the other. The second show we did was about my new book, We've Got Issues: How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity. Thank all of you for your support of the book. You've put it on every bestseller list in the country and put it right at the top. So I'm so appreciative of your support for that book. I think it's the most important book that I've written. I think it can lead to unifying so many of our differences and really give you information that you need to focus on things that are important in your family and in our country right now. Our third show was Generation Coddled, and you know how I feel about that. I think we're just really spoiling these young people right now. They're not going to be able to compete in this world. Those were our young people. It was interesting that our next show had to do with the other end of the continuum. We talked about the older generation being so lonely and getting scammed so badly. And then we looked at teachers under attack. We had teachers giving us video of students physically attacking them. One of those had been viewed 67 million times. That meant kids were standing around videotaping but not helping. Really troubling. And then just a few days ago, we did Should DEI Die? Should diversity, equity, and inclusion die? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? And boy, did you guys have powerful, strong opinions about that. Wednesday night of last week, we did Whistleblower Doctors. Doctors and nurses who came forward and were talking about the truth about some of these young people, 11, 12 years old, that are undergoing these gender transitioning treatments. It's called gender affirming care, but that's a marketing term. What we're really talking about is gender reassignment procedures, sometimes surgical, sometimes hormonal. Thursday and Friday, we went to the border, and you saw what happened there. Yesterday, we dealt with what's happening with China buying up parts of America, and particularly in places that made me real nervous. Today, we're going to take a look at COVID 4 years later. And listen, you got COVID fatigue. You don't want to listen about that, but it's not about that. It's about where we are 4 years later and what you need to do to shake any effects off that are there. So I hope you'll watch it later tonight when that comes on. But I said I was going to answer your questions. That's what I want to do. So LaFern's going to help me out, my executive producer of the podcast. So LaFern, you got some questions?
Yeah, we got a lot of great questions
All right.
from your podcast forum community. And Jolly said she loved your latest book and your take on DEI. She especially loved how we need to shift from cancel culture to counsel culture, However, she said, I also believe that DEI has become a convenient scapegoat lately. As someone who works in DEI space in higher education, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from the inside. I think DEI needs to be fixed, not nixed. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dr. Phil? I mean, there aren't enough meaningful conversations about this. And she included a little dog, her little puppy, just in case she wanted to make some friends up on the pod.
Yeah, okay. Good looking dog. Good looking dog. Should have given us a name, but I'll just look at it in anonymity. Yeah, we did talk about DEI. Should DEI die? And I do think people have a lot of strong opinions about DEI. I think as it is currently being practiced and applied, I think DEI should die. I don't think it's working. I don't think that it's a good thing for anybody involved. Look, here's the thing. If DEI is being pushed as it is now, meaning that there is preferential treatment being given to any group, any class, anyone that is being given preferential treatment, it's not going to work. The Supreme Court has ruled on these things, certainly at university level, that you can't take certain characteristics into account when you're determining whether somebody can be considered for admission or not. And the problem is this. If you get into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you start using race as a criteria, to me, that seems racist. And if you start using a quota system and you start filling slots based on that, and that alone, independent of other qualifications, I think you're doing a disservice in a number of ways. I've got several friends that have really done a great job in their professions and certainly in their educational experiences that tell me I forever will have people looking at me and saying, oh, yeah, you got into this school, you got into this residency program, you got through because someone made allowances for you. And they say that is absolutely not true, and people forever judge me as though allowances were made. If that was the case, it shouldn't be the case. Nobody wants to be dealing with somebody that allowances were made for, standards were lowered for, just to fill some kind of a quota. I don't want to get on an airliner where a pilot wasn't held to the highest standard because they were in some kind of affected class. I don't want to get on an airliner if that pilot wasn't held to the highest standards for selection, training, and performance. I don't want to walk into a hospital needing surgery and get operated on by a doctor who wasn't held to the highest standards, who didn't have the highest grades, who didn't have the highest performance in qualifying for that position.
We have J.E. She has a family full of narcissists. She realized that her family dynamic is really not healthy and they have narcissistic traits, and she's allowing their dynamics to influence her child's upbringing. And so she's struggling with boundaries with her kids, and she's distancing herself and feels guilt from distancing herself from her family, and what moral implications, particularly from a Christian perspective. But she was like, how does she get over the guilt and limiting this family relationship because she feels that it's her fault? She feels that she's the crazy one.
Well, if that's all true, then J.E., you're probably living with a pretty good narcissist. You say you're shocked to realize that multiple family members exhibit these traits. When I say you're probably living with some effective narcissist, the things you're saying tell me that they're good at what they do. The narcissist personality disorder is one where they have the skill and ability to gaslight you, to make you feel like whatever's going wrong is your problem. I can promise you that confronting them is not going to help you at all. You cannot and do not want to argue with a narcissist. Now, I tell you that not to enable the narcissist, but to save you a lot of pain, misery, and wasted time. You're not going to win an argument with a narcissist. There's nothing you can say or nothing you can do that's going to create any insight, empathy, understanding, or remorse on their part, because they don't have the ability to experience those feelings, thoughts, or disorders. They're going to blame you for whatever it is that you confront them with. So this is something that you're going to have to deal with on your own. So what I'm saying is the only person you control is you. That's true in 100% of your relationships. Now, what you can usually do in a relationship is inspire the other person to change. But in a narcissistic relationship, that's not going to happen. You're not going to inspire the other person to change. They have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance that requires constant and excessive attention. And they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the ability to admit that they're wrong about something. They're too fragile because it's a false sense of superiority. And underneath that thin veil of competence and superiority is a very insecure and fragile individual. So if they admit any kind of wrongdoing, if they admit any kind of critical thought into their mind, everything can collapse. So they will fight to the death to keep from owning any kind of bad behavior. They expect to be recognized as superior, even if they don't have any achievements. And everything they do, they embellish them and make them seem bigger and more important than they are, and they belittle anything and everything that you do. They'll one-up you on everything, and if you come at them and say, look, you're really making me feel bad, then they're going to turn that around and try and get you to feel guilty for trying to blame them for something that they had nothing to do with. They'll get impatient, they'll get angry, they'll turn everything around on you. So what you have to do is distance yourself from these people, and if you choose to feel guilty about it, that's on you. These are people that very seldom get better with therapy, and changing them is certainly above your pay grade. This is something that probably is a function of genetics, neurobiology. It could be environmental that started way before you. They don't have good relationships. They're not going to have good relationships. And if you've got a child that's getting victimized by this, your duty, your loyalty is to the child. You need to protect your child from this person or these people. And if it means getting out of that house, getting out of those relationships, putting these people in your rearview mirror, that's what you need to do. Now, I'm saying all of this having never met you and having never met them. I prefaced all of this with a big IF. If what you're saying is true, then your choice is to get distance between you and them, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that. You should be proud that you recognized it and moved away. Now, the big if that I'm saying is, I don't know if you're describing them accurately or not. But if they are narcissistic, truly, then you need distance because they're not very likely to change, and your duty is to your child. Get away from them, protect that child, get them into a healthy environment.
My daughter wants my negative voice out of her head, says Sandra. My mother's voice is still in my head, and I'm over 60. Her interpretation of my voice is constant manipulation. what am I manipulating? What does manipulation mean in the brain of a 20-something-year-old? Any answer would help.
Okay, let me see here. Now, the daughter wants my negative voice out of her head. So this is being written by a mother,
Correct.
right? And she's saying,
Yes.
my daughter wants my negative voice out of her head. I think this is something I need more information about. Is this still her down here, mother of 3?
Yeah, she's a mother of 3. Her daughter's 27, and she's struggling with communication. The mother acknowledges the feelings of blame, the blame game. She knows that is not good for the relationship. And the daughter is like, I don't want any contact with you. Let's text. And the mother thinks it's the boyfriend that's coming in and putting false things in her head. But she seeks to understand the meaning behind manipulation in the perspective of young adults.
Sandra, I think my best advice to you is to recognize that you are dealing with a different generation. And you want to remember that life is a marathon, not a sprint. And what I mean by that is your daughter is likely to go through different phases, different moods, different priorities in her life. And who knows what's motivating her thoughts and feelings right now. The best advice that I could give you at this point is to be patient and try and meet her where she is and take away as many of the things you possibly can that give her an excuse to be critical. You say you're grappling with this whole new generation of no contact, working through text, doing things the way she wants to do, but the end result is that you have a long-term, ongoing quality relationship with your daughter. And if right now she's labeling you as manipulating her, I would say to do 3 things. Number 1, try to see things through her eyes first. That's going to be difficult, but try and say, okay, what could I be doing that she considers manipulative? Remember, you are an authority figure in her life. Are you asking questions that she sees as judgmental or accusatory? Does she find it difficult to be accountable to you in some way? And is there something that she's hearing in your voice that she heard when she was a teenager and maybe wasn't doing a great job? So she hears that in your voice now, and it causes her to recoil. If she's telling you, look, let's just text back and forth right now. And you go, wow, that's really impersonal. Well, okay, but maybe right now she needs that because she's feeling crowded. Meet her where she is right now. Say, look, not my first choice, but if that's what you need right now, let's give that a try for a while and see if maybe, just maybe, backing off like that's like what's she going to complain about now? Maybe you've got a good friend or a husband, someone you love and trust that can look at the text messages you're going to see and tell you honestly, that's guilt-inducing. I mean, if you started out by saying, well, here's your big shot text, no, you don't want to send that. That's judgmental and it's going to be off-putting. So maybe you don't want to do that. Have somebody check and make sure that your resentment's not coming through. Truly give it a shot and see if you can take away anything that she has a legitimate right to complain about. Maybe she starts saying, hey, thanks for giving this a chance my way. And she sends you a picture of your grandkids and that sort of thing. Maybe she starts to come back around your direction.